welcome back to my review series for A Certain Magical Index. This time we're talking about what I would call the first peak of Tuaru, or at least the first arc of Tuaru that gets really intense, and that is the Sisters arc, or the Radio Noise arc, or I guess, well, Accelerator's involved in other arcs, so I don't know if you could just call this the Accelerator arc, or the Level 6 Project arc, but the Sisters arc is what both versions of this arc is called. And that's kind of my hang-up for this review. We have two versions to talk about. I'm going to be really talking about the in-depth version, because there's a lot of supplemental material mentioned in between stuff. Like, we get explained of, like, Esper lore and, like, rumors. We get, the imaginary number district hinted at, which doesn't come into play till Volume 6 with Hyoka Kazukiri. And we also have to talk about Mikoto, because she gets a big role in this. This is probably the volume where she gets the biggest role. Accelerator, who would go on to become one of the main characters of Tuaru, and Toma. But we also have stuff to mention with Railgun, like, not much, but, you know, this arc kind of begins more with, involves Mikoto a lot, so Railgun went more in depth with it, you know, what Misaka was doing up until it intersects with Toma, and then, of course, her fight with Item and Mugi no Shizuri. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about. So, I'm going to be breaking this up through the chapter. So, the first chapter is essentially pretty short. I think it's the shortest prologue chapter we have in the entire series, or at least the first 3 books, because it's only, like, I think 4 or 5 pages, and it's the initial fight between one of the Misakas. I don't think we get her number, because the one we meet is 10,032, who I just came to call the sisters like Nisaka, because Ni in Japanese is 2, so 2 is the second Misaka, so Tusaka, Nisaka. But they call her Misaka Imoto, which I think is, but we do get some stuff with her weapon, which I think is like the Metal Eater Jets. We didn't get their guns really expanded upon in the anime, which you don't need to, but I like a little lore, considering I have a best friend who's a complete gun nut. I like that kind of stuff, because then I can bother him about it, and I bothered him about that. So it's kind of a chilling start of, like, it's this young girl just lining up a sniper shot to kill this relatively young man, of course being Accelerator, who is stated to be 15 or 16. I've always viewed Accelerator as, like, 18. Like, him, Kakine, and Mugino have always been, like, 18, 19. Like, they've always been, like, the oldest level 5s in my brain, or at least in the headcanon I have. Because I know Mugino is referred to as, like, college age. Kakine is a bit older. And I always thought Accelerator was just, like, 17, 18. He was, like, a few years older than Toma. But he's not, so this is also where we get the first kind of display of Accelerator's ability, Vector Manipulation, or Vector Transformation, or just Vector, which, is very broken. So that kind of ends with her firing the shot, and it just getting plinked right back at her. I will say, this is the volume where shit gets a lot more bloody, because it says that it just impacts her and just completely fucks her shoulder up. Like, completely ruins it. And that's the end of it, as Accelerator kills her, and it's a very dramatic, like, thus begins our murder drama, because a big thing with this arc is, you know, the death. Because the thing with the sisters is, are they human? Because that's the hang-up that, like, Toma and Accelerator have as characters. And, I guess it's a good time to get into. Accelerator and Toma are basically complete opposites, because, if you didn't know, in the, production stages, for Tuaru, Accelerator was the original protagonist, but Kamachi made him too OP, so he decided to make Toma, and you can see this in their design, as Toma has black hair, and Accelerator has white hair, and Toma mainly dresses in white, while Accelerator, in this volume at least, dresses in black, and of course after Accelerator's kind of arc, he dresses more white, and his World War III attire is all white. So yeah. The second chapter, or the first chapter I guess, kind of introduces Toma to, we get 2 character introductions here. We meet Kodoko Shirai, who I affectionately call the cut lesbian, because a huge part of Kuroko's character is she really loves Misaka. like to a comedic effect that she's just so gay for Misaka. It's funny. And we don't get much with her. We don't get it set, but she's a member of Judgment. I think the 177th branch, along with another character, Ueharu Kazari, who we don't meet in this volume, but we will meet in the future. She's a pretty cool character. I like Satan a bit more, but yeah, Ueharu's nice. And we also meet the sister. The way you tell, there's kind of a difference in their design in Railgun and Indets. In Indets, their eyes are different, because Misaka, I think, has like green eyes, while the sisters all have like gray eyes. And of course, they also all wear the night vision goggles. But if that's a way you could just tell by their eyes. But in Railgun, they have the same exact eye color. Actually, no, I think their eyes are brown. I don't know. I don't have a picture up. So we also do get some more comedic and relationship stuff with Toma and Misaka. One thing I will say that I feel like is super terrifying is Toma's amnesia isn't as big of a plot point in this book, but it does get brought up a lot because he meets Misaka again. And they're both kind of hanging out at a vending machine, and he's like, I feel like I know this person, but I don't know. And I have to feel like that's terrifying, that you see a person, they know you obviously, but you don't know them. And there is something that Misaka does go into, like, you're strong, but you act like a weak-willed coward. And that annoys me. Like, that's the reason Misaka gets on Toma as much as she does, is because she is pissed off that he has such a strong ability, Imagine Breaker, and was able to beat her pretty easily, the Railgun, the 3rd ranked level 5 Esper. But he just runs from everything, and it annoys her. So, we get some more stuff with that. We go back and we meet another new character, Maika Tsuchimikado, who is the younger sister of another character who's going to be very relevant, who, funny enough, Motoharu Tsuchimikado is one of Toma's friends, along with Aogami, but we don't meet him till Volume 4 in the light novel, but we meet him much earlier in the anime. Maika is a maid. She attends a maid's girls' school, and apparently, according to Railgun, also works at Tokyo Wadai. Yeah, because during some of the arts, she's working there. I don't know if that's a continuity error. There is something to bring up with Railgun, is there is a couple continuity errors, but they're kind of weird. I'm not going to get into it. I do plan to make videos on Railgun, but, that's another day. So we meet them, and then we go back to Toma's apartment, and with this... And this is where we meet, Himigami and Indets, where I think this is Indets' only appearance in this volume. Himigami is staying with Toma. Well, I think she's actually staying with Komoe, but she's just visiting Toma, because she's indebted to Toma. Something with Deep Blood that is interesting is it feels like Deep Blood is a magic ability as well, because she still has her same design, but now she has, like, a silver Celtic cross that's sealing Deep Blood, so essentially she got kicked out of her school because she's essentially a level 0 now. Which I guess that infers that, because her school was, like, some schools are, like, because Academy City is, like a school city, so they're kind of like how some schools won't accept you if kind of credentials. It's kind of the same thing in Academy City, where some schools won't accept you unless you're a level 2 or higher. Most likely, probably stuff like Tokyo Wadai, because I don't think we know anyone in Tokyo Wadai who has a level below 2, because, let me go through a couple. You have Shokuho and Misaka, who are level 5s, Koroko and Mitsuko, who are both level 4s. Mitsuko's two girls that hang around, I forget their names. Wanai is one of I forget their names. They're both level 3s, I believe. So yeah. This is kind of where we end that off. And then we get into chapter 2. Ooh. We do find out that the sisters do have the same ability as Misaka, but it's a little bit weaker. So, to go into this a little bit, Misaka, as a child, agreed to a plan to help out with I think it's muscle I forget the name. That it's that disease where your muscles just fail you and like are very weak, and you'll just die after a couple years. So there was a doctor that wanted to map Misaka's DNA so they could assist it, but this was twisted, and made it to the Radio Noise Project, which originally was a project to make an artificial level 5. That was the purpose of it. But it failed because, no duh, you can't really replicate a level 5. Like, even someone like Sugita, actually, Sugita's a shit example because he's weird. Sugita's, or like, I don't know, someone like Mugino, or like Shokuho, because their abilities are pretty straightforward, because, you know, Shokuho just has Mental Out, and Mugino just has Meltdowner. Pretty simple abilities at face value. You could theorize it, but it's just the structure to make a level 5 is hard, so they couldn't, so it was a defunct project. But then it got brought up, it got continued through the level 6 shift project, which I'll get into in a minute. So, the next day, Toma encounters another sister, this assumingly the same one he met the other day, and she's hanging out with this black cat, and we get a funny scene here where Toma's like, it's your dog, it's your cat, name it, and one of the first names is Dog, which we get the funny scene, a cat that is named a dog. Misaka's all the Misaka clones have like a speech pattern of like they say a sentence and then says Misaka in a flashy manner, or like notes Misaka as she sighs. Last Order also keeps this up. I don't think Misaka Worst has this as well, but yeah. But then, you know, her and Toma kind of walk around, and then they end up at a bookstore. Because Toma, you know, he has to take care of a cat because of indebts with Sphinx. So, as he goes in, Accelerator shows up. And this is where we get the first kind of display of Accelerator's power. Accelerator is, a complicated character. He's my favorite character in Tuaru. No shit. I think he's one of the best written. Even in the anime, I think all his scenes were done magnificently. And shout out to, I think it's Nobuhiko Okamoto, Bakugo's Japanese VA. He does a great job at Accelerator. Seriously, I was hearing his voice as I was reading all his lines. But it's not specifically with this Misaka, but he does fight another Misaka. And this is where we just see the difference in this. So this project is the level 6 shift project. So this is the quote-unquote purpose of Academy City is to make a level 6. Or, as Komori kind of explains, a human with godlike powers. That's the best explanation of level 6 we ever get. And it was said that the only person who could have... This is later contextualized in the Daheisei Festival arc in Railgun, that all the level 5s could attain it, but Accelerator's the only one who could attain a stable, because as we saw with 5.3 Misaka. But it would take him killing Railgun 128 times, which is why the Radio Noise Project is brought into this. But because they couldn't make clones of Misaka perfectly, as they averaged out around level 3, they had to do 20,000 clones. So after killing 20,000 clones, Accelerator would shift into level 6. Accelerator, we'll get into Accelerator's reason for wanting to become a level 6, as you would think, like, okay, you're the top ranked level 5. Why do you need more power? You would think it's a selfish reason, but we get it recontextualized that it's actually a really good reason. Accelerator, without the context of later scenes, Accelerator kind of seems like a one-note character. He's kind of like the evil, power-seeking asshole. Someone like Virgil from Devil May Cry, ironically. Another favorite character of mine. But with Accelerator, it's a bit more complicated. We'll get into that. Accelerator's full pass isn't set to us in this volume, but he had a hard pass. So they fight. Accelerator completely outclasses her, shit-talks her the entire time. He mentions his ability, which is a vector transformation. Basically, vectors rule the world, so Accelerator essentially can. So he messes her up, essentially wins the fight, but he caused a wound in her arm, so we get the scene of he stabs his hand into her arm, and is like, I'm now touching the flow of your blood. What would happen if I reversed the flow of your blood? And he does that. And it is much more gruesome in the manga, in the light novel. Sorry, I have the habit of saying manga, but I have to say light novel, because that's what I'm talking about. So Toma comes out, he's like, what's going on? So he goes into the alley, and he discovers her body. she has her leads at least, and it is said that that from the floor to the walls of the alleyway is covered in blood from eye level, and basically she has a face, but calling it a face is basically, it is gruesome as shit. It's like just a flower blossom of muscle and blood, and Toma vomits. As you would upon seeing someone you were talking to not even 5 minutes earlier completely just decimated. It is a gruesome scene. It choked me up a bit. Because, oh boy, like, I've seen a lot of bloody anime. Like, I've seen a lot of bloody scenes. But, when Kamachi describes it in a way, oh, it is brutal. So, he tells the police, which, funny scene, it's not 911, like, in our world, in, like, America, it's 119. I don't know if that's a joke from Kamachi. It probably is. So he calls the police, they discover the body is gone, and this is where he finds out about the whole project. And he is completely furious by it, because with Toma, the main hang-up with this is Toma and Accelerator view the sisters completely differently. Accelerator doesn't view them as human, because they can be manufactured. But with Toma, yeah, they all have the same DNA, but they're all still people. They all have their own life. So that's what messes him up, so he runs off. He goes off to Tokyo Wadai dorm, and he goes and meets with Kuroko. Kuroko and, like, all the other Railgun team kind of get sidelined in this arc in Railgun, but Kuroko kind of, like, has faith in Misaka, because it's like, Onisama is doing something she needs to do, and who am I to get between her and that? So I think I'll mention the events of Railgun. So, Misaka finds out about this project after investigating radio noise. And this completely infuriates her, because she finds it. So she goes on this hellbent mission to destroy every facility that this science team has, and this eventually gets her in conflict with Item, led by the fourth level 5, Mugino Shizuri, known as Meltdowner. So Misaka in this fights against Frenda, who I like a lot. Frenda's cool. Frenda is a level 0, who's from, I think, Switzerland or Finland, I forget which one. Probably Switzerland, who uses bombs, and she fights against Misaka, and then this is when we get, the introduction of the others. She fights against Mugino in one of the best fights of a railgun. It is such a good fight, because, number one, it completely makes you see why Mugino murdered Frenda in Deaths 3, because, Frenda's kind of a dumbass, and we also get, we don't get a lot with Sai, the other member of Item. I forget what her ability is, but we do get a bit with Takisubo Riko, who has, like, Aim Stalker. She can track espers, and she eats these specific crystals, like drugs, that enhance her ability. And we also find out later that Takisubo is a potential level 5. So yeah, she fights against Mugino. It's a great fight. Go watch it in the anime. It's great. Mugino's VA is also really cool. I forget who does her VA, but it's a really good VA. And after this, Misaka goes, and it's like, okay, if I can recalibrate, tree diagram, then the experiment could recalculate and be done. But she goes and finds out it's been completely destroyed, and this completely wrecks Misaka mentally. She is completely destroyed from this mentally. So she has only one option in her brain: kill herself. Basically, this experiment goes on the process of killing Misaka 128 times would lead him to a level 6. And, it was, like, predicted she would lose in, like, over 200 moves. But what if she lost in one? What if Accelerator just... She pinged her railgun, and he just pinged it back and killed her. Which we do get a scene... We do get a little fight with them earlier on, and she just pinged, and Accelerator just effortlessly paints it back. So, this is where Toma discovers about the project through papers Misaka had. He reads about it, and he gets utterly furious about it, and he goes to find Misaka. And we find this is where we get the whole Misaka is gonna kill herself, and Toma just is not having that, because it's like, you're not killing yourself. So they fight, and we find out that I like Kamachi for this because he does explain the difference between volts and amps, because there is a difference. Just because something has high voltage doesn't mean it'll necessarily kill a human, but it's the amps that kill humans. I might fuck that up. I don't know. I took like several years of science. I'm not an expert. Before we get into the big conflict, the height of this, we'll get into some of the minor stuff. So, there's a scene interspliced here with Komoe with Indet and Himigami, and that's where we find out about the imaginary number district, 5 elements institution, which is relating to Hyoka Kazakiri. And then we get some other hints, like rumors. We have like the rumor of an AI controlling all ethics, military, and economics of the world via the internet. We also do kind of get explained how espers work. But the other two rumors that Komoe mentions are the Clone Dolly Workshop, which is relating to Shokuho, Mitori, and Dolly's backstory in a Railgun T, which I won't get into big here, but you know, that whole project of making exterior, and then the clones, and Dolly being like the prototype version of the Misaka clones. But yeah. And Hound Dog, which later on would come into conflict with Accelerator during the 0930 incident arc. But yeah. But we also get one more thing, 2 more things. There's a minor mention of a character named Izanami, and if you're this made me laugh, and because if you're aware of Tekken 101, he has a whole gag about bakeries, and whenever a bakery comes up in a series, I lose my shit. So there's a character named Izanami who stayed with Komoe and is training to be a baker. That's not relevant, but I just find it funny. But the other 2 things are, espers are related to Schrodinger's theory and personal reality, which I cannot explain in a good way, but personal realities are kind of like what esper abilities are based on. It is really complicated. Kamachi is a rule shark, so he loves this kind of shit. But the other thing we get mentioned are how what level 6 is. It's a human with god powers, and Indet's kind of pipes up and she mentions Einstoff Order, Einstoff, and Ein 00000 and 0, which are domains of God. We don't, and like the Sephiroth tree, which is definitely related to like the Misaka network later on. But yeah, I will talk about that later. Now to get into the conflict. So, after Misaka and Toma fight, Toma wakes up after getting electrocuted nearly to death, and his heart stops, and he discovers a way. This whole project, the level 6 shift project, is going on the basis Accelerator is the strongest. But what if, just what if, Accelerator, the strongest, were to lose to the weakest in Academy City, a level 0? And Misaka's like, you're a fucking idiot, you're gonna die. And Toma's like, it's that or you die. And I'm willing to risk it. So Toma goes off, and this goes into the final chapter, Accelerator. So during this time, Misaka 10,032 is fighting off with Accelerator, and Accelerator goes into his why. I think it's the Misaka 1032 asks him like, why are you doing this? You're already the strongest. What? And Accelerator goes into, there's a difference between being the strongest and being invincible. And he kind of says, being the strongest at level 5 is boring. Because people still pick the reason people know I'm the strongest is because people pick a fucking fight with me and then I nearly kill them. But with level 6, the concept of fighting Accelerator would be a fucking joke. So that's his reason. And this goes into Accelerator's backstory of like, he genuinely does not want to hurt people, but because of Academy City's darkness, he's forced to. And then, as they fight, Accelerator is about to go in for the kill, but then appears Kamijo Toma, and we start with a really good fight between Accelerator and Toma. There's a little bit of back and forth between them, like, Accelerator's like, do you know who the fuck you're talking to? And just Toma's not having any of his shit. It's great. And this is where where Accelerator, we find out the critical flaw of Accelerator. Sure, Accelerator's ability is god tier. Vector manipulation is one of the strongest esper abilities in the entire city, but if you take that away, he is shit at fighting. So Toma punches him, and is able to do massive damage to him because Accelerator has never taken a hit. He has never taken a hit, so he doesn't know what damage is to him. It's like those scenes in like a lot of anime where like the OP character is like invincible and then someone actually does damage. Like specifically like Overlord with Ainz, when Ainz gets hit with that smite from the angel and he's like, oh, so this is damage. It's kind of a moment of there. Accelerator is just fascinated because he's never lost. So this goes on, and Toma is able to kind of fight back against him until Accelerator does a genuinely impressive feat and manipulates the air to essentially make an air bomb, or a plasma bomb, essentially. There's actually a funny scene here where one of Accelerator's stat line is not even a nuke can kill him, and then he nearly dies in like a flower explosion. Like, oh shit, fuck, I guess I have to take away that tagline. Well, if you die here, you can at least die with the thought of, hey, you're the first person who made Accelerator feel the fear of death. So yeah, this goes on, and the Misaka shows up. Toma kind of fights against that, like, don't get involved, but through the sisters' help, they're able to kind of retract the air bomb, essentially, and we get a scene that I love, you know, because Toma gets up after being knocked unconscious. Accelerator is just looking at him, and then Toma just says, grit your teeth, the weak strongest, and that's where their fight ends, as Accelerator loses to the weakest in Academy City. We do get a little bit of an epilogue, where we get kind of the conversation between Misaka Moto and Toma. The experiments has stopped because they saw Accelerator lost to the weakest in Academy City. And thus, he isn't fit for the experiment anymore. And then she's like, my life is in danger, but because my life could end, but we'll be fixing that because Heaven Chancellor helped them out there. And then the arc ends with Toma meeting back with Index. Index is like, I was worried about you, and Toma's just like, I'm sorry. And that is the arc end. I love this arc a lot. I think it is phenomenal in the light novel version. Even the anime version, I feel like, did not change much, which was great, because this is a really important arc, because this is kind of the interlinking. This is the start of Accelerator's character arc, and his kind of obsession with Toma, which I won't get into, because, spoilers, but Accelerator is a character who views himself as a villain, and he views Toma as his opposite, a hero. And Accelerator is just OP. We'll be talking about him in, like, 2 weeks with the 3 Stories arc, so that'll be fun. But yeah. I was tempted to make a video on Level Upper and the arcs leading up to this in the Railgun anime, but I kind of decided not to. I'll talk about them at a much later date, once I read the manga, because I haven't read the manga. So if I make any mistakes with the manga version of Railgun, that's why I have not read it. Yeah, I really enjoy this arc. I think Toma is really good. They cut out a line that it's like Toma's dream of, like, I want to protect people and bring back everyone with a smile on my face without losing nothing, which is childish, but works for Toma. And I think that's all I wanted to mention. I like Accelerator. He's great. There's some, and what I genuinely recommend, if you've seen the Index version but haven't seen the Railgun, watch the Railgun, because it adds a lot of context that makes this arc even better and really helps Misaka's character. She's a great character in here. Yeah. So next week we'll be talking about the Angel Fall arc, which I heard is another arc that got butchered in the anime, so that'll be very interesting. But yeah, I think that's all I wanted to mention. Yeah, that's it. So if you like this video, like and subscribe and comment. And I've been kind of on a roll, and I've been enjoying making videos, so I'll keep making them. The Index video is doing surprisingly well. I did not think it was going to be doing that well, but it was. So hopefully this video will do similar numbers. But if you like this video, do all that YouTube stuff. Neo, signing out.